This is going to be a quick video about copyright and formatting. So the first thing we want to talk about copyright is the actual definition, and you can read it on this slide. Copyright is basically how you mark your work as your own, and it's a way of protecting what you create or invent, and that can be anything in any of those categories that you see. So it's basically intellectual, physical, anything that you create or somebody else creates is protected by copyright. So some examples: if you create a weird monkey statue that your monkey's wearing armor, that's cool. You can have that protected by copyright. Any music that you create. So it's not just art. It's not just literature. It can be ideas as well. But those are a lot harder to find examples of in picture form. One of the things that gets people in trouble is fair use. And you can see the definition of fair use here. Fair use is not a free-for-all, get-out-of-jail-free card. There are exceptions made for teachers and students, but it doesn't cover everything. If I wanted to show in a classroom that I'm teaching a movie, I could do that under fair use because it's in a educational small class kind of setting. But if I wanted to take that same movie and show it on the lawn of Anderson for something, that's where it becomes a copyright issue in terms of, did I ask permission? Did they say yes? And most times they want some kind of compensation for me using their movie and showing it to 20 people, 50 people, when I paid $10 for it to watch as my home use kind of thing. So fair use and copyright really comes into play when you're talking about if you are making any money off of using somebody else's work. That's where it really becomes a problem. Another thing about fair use is, even though teachers and students are allowed some fair use educational stuff in there, that doesn't mean that if you are a teacher or a student that you can just take whatever you want. One of the big things about fair use and copyright in general is one of the biggest um, breakers of copyright in the United States is elementary school teachers. And it's when they buy one copy of a Dr. Seuss book and then go to the copy machine and turn it into 20 paper copies that they then staple and put hole punches in and give together and make their own little mini books. What the copyright holder really wants you to do is buy 20 copies of the book. But when you're an educator and you don't have the ability to go out and buy 20 copies of that Dr. Seuss book. That's what they do instead, and that's in fact breaking copyright law. So elementary educators are one of the number one breakers of copyright law, most of the time unknowingly and just because of monetary reasons. But that's really not the best practice for that. So one of the things that you can use and get away with fair use for is commentary and criticism. So you're allowed to comment and critique on a copyright work if you want to write a review of any book that you want to do. You're allowed to, even though it's copyrighted. You're allowed to comment or critique a movie or book or a song or anything else. That's fine. You can summarize an article in a news report. You can take it off the news and make your own commentary about it. You can basically summarize it. Basically, this is all news or review purposes. You're not actually making money off of their work. You're reviewing their work. You're not making your own money off of it. The other side of copyright is plagiarism, which is basically theft, which is why I found this really awesome picture of this kid stealing cookies. So everybody knows what plagiarism is. It's basically cheating or breaking a copyright where you pass off somebody else's stuff as your own. Um, it can be sometimes really difficult to avoid plagiarizing somebody else, even when you're not meaning to, just because there's so much content that has been written that there is a chance that even though you didn't look at that particular person's work, that you found it somehow and accidentally used their exact words just because we have a bunch of stuff written. But there are some ways to prevent that from happening. The first way to prevent plagiarism from happening is cite your sources, right? It's super easy to cite your sources. A lot of times you've already done most of that work by that point, that you found the journal article, you found the book that you need, you have it out, you're writing your paper, and you think, man, that's a really great sentence, that's a really great line in that I want to use. Just cite it. How hard is it to go ahead and put a quote around it and put, from so and so 2006, and put a parentheses around it and put it in your bibliography? You have to do a bibliography for most papers anyway. Adding an extra one for citing that or using that, that's not a bad thing. And professors like to see that you've cited people. They want to see that you've looked at stuff. And don't be afraid to add more things to your bibliography that you didn't actually use in your paper. That just shows that you actually went out and looked at some stuff and said, I looked at this source and I didn't think it was that good, but I'm still going to use it because it influenced my opinion on my paper. Another way to avoid plagiarism is a really easy one, and it's paraphrasing, right? Don't just copy and paste from any article or any journal that you find. Don't copy and paste. Don't put anything in. Paraphrase it. So take whatever that really awesome quote is that you want to use. If you feel like you've cited them too much and you want to try to put in your own words, try to replace as many of the important words as you possibly can into your own ideas and completely reword that phrase or that sentence or whatever that piece may be. So paraphrasing, it can be a little bit difficult to do, but it's better to restate it in your own words. That way you can be really sure that you're not plagiarizing from somebody else. So the other thing we want to do is we want to talk about APA formatting really quick. There's a couple different places that you can find APA formatting stuff. Here in the library, we have the physical actual APA research guides, the reference books that you can come get, and I have the call number here. Like I said, it's on the first floor in the reference stuff. If you have any questions, ask at the circulation desk for it. Don't ever copy and paste from an article that you find online their citation. A lot of times those citations are not in a format that they're not in the format that you need. They might be in MLA instead of APA. They might be in Turabian instead of MLA. It just might be in some weird style that they just put stuff in whatever kind of order they want it to. Don't ever copy and paste that. Always use at least two sources to check. Here in the library, on the website, we use the Purdue Online Writing Lab, or Purdue OWL. I have linked to those in the subject guides. So for whatever major topic you have, if you go on the left-hand side of the subject guides, you can see at the bottom left-hand corner, there'll be, I think I've linked to in-text citations, the bibliography page, and then there's a sample paper for each one of those. So don't be afraid to go there and look and try to check and see how it actually works. On the image on the right, at the top is the format for an online journal article that you've used, and then the bottom is with the actual journal put in there. So view the top part I view it as a formula. That's the formula that you need for doing a bibliography in APA in this certain example. And then I just do it like math and just plug in each one of plug in the author titles, plug in the date of publication, the title of the online periodical, and anything else. That's all I have for copyright and formatting. Come by my office. I'm on the first floor as you go to the elevator if you have any questions.